we have the right to inhabit our land, to use our land.
Our culture is about sustaining that relationship with the plants, the animals, in a forest.
I did start drawing a lot in the residential school, really not knowing my culture and traditions.
And I'm very proud to be here today. My name is Halos, and this is my squia.
Hello again, and welcome to Voices of Shishalh. I'm getting that pronunciation right. This is the only chief that is on television as a political correspondent, the host of his own TV show, and of course the leader of the Shishalh Nation. And it has been a very, very busy time in your world. Longhouses are going up, strategies are being formed. It seems that this is an extraordinarily vital time for your members and your nation.
Yep, and we've been building not only coalitions, but building relationships with the local government. But just on the past weekend, I was able to lend my voice and lend my assistance to the group that is opposing the transport of the coal shipment from Vancouver ports into our territory, through our territory, into the Texada area. And it is very detrimental to not only our people, but the people of the entire community. And that's why I think it's really important that we have TV shows like this to expose and to bring events like that to the community, that they're able to be aware of what the government is doing within and through our territory. Well, I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm always grateful that I'm still here walking this land, this most beautiful piece of land in all the world. When I first took the struggle over this year from Gary Feschuk, I met with the Ministry of Transport federally, and the words that she shared to all of us in West Vancouver were empty. I made it known to her that her words didn't affect me whatsoever. When I asked her what she would do when devastation happens in Texada, she said, "Oh, the Coast Guard will be there." So my next question to her, I said, "What Coast Guard?" But we haven't stopped in the struggle. As you know, the band has taken on the struggle in many layers, on many agendas, and we continue to do so. Gary Feschuk has continued to meet with Minister Bennett, trying to encourage him that clean energy is a better way than Site C Dam. I was shocked to hear our Premier declare that LNG is going to be great for the economy. LNG is great for the country. Fracking, there's nothing wrong with fracking. She literally said that. I couldn't believe it. You know, and fracking are damaging not only the land, but killing animals in the north that sustain the native people in the north. When I met with the Ministry of Transportation federally, I stated to her that Sabine Channel was a main source of sustainability for our people, since we are salmon people and we depend wholly on salmon. And that was going to be devastating for us if she was going to contaminate that. When I was a young chief in the 70s, it seemed like we were alone, struggling to try to protect our land, struggling to be independent, struggling to take over jurisdiction to protect what we had. But I'm very happy to see you all here today and taking on the battle. And that's what it's going to take, concerned citizens up and down the coast to take on this battle, because the federal government and the provincial government have dropped the ball in terms of protecting the environment, the land, and all of its resources for the greater good of all of our people. We thought we were the only ones that they were going to devastate, but it's going to be each and every one of us. And each and every one of us have to stand up together to take on that battle. And I see that's the way of taking on this battle, is that we have to do it with communication. And once again, I'm thanking you to be here to communicate and collaborate and work together. Thank you.
And it was only about 3 weeks ago that a woman organized a bunch of people with boats from Lasqueti, and they did a rehearsal, and they're prepared to go out and block those coal carriers if they come through. Is that true?
Well, many of the citizens are participating, especially from Texada and Lasqueti. They are willing. They have some boats available that they could block barges that travel through that area. As it came about in the meeting on Saturday, there are people who are willing to have and demonstrate civil disobedience.
I guess that leads us to our next film clip. We were here, there was an Idle No More demonstration here on the Sunshine Coast, and you were in it, and members of your family, and a lot of other people, and we've got some clip on that so you can see what it looked like when it was done here on the Sunshine Coast. But it was part of a national strategy, and as you can see by the clip, these are local people. Idle No More is a movement, and I guess the question is, Chief, is it a movement that basically was a catalyst, or is it still alive?
I think Idle No More is still alive. It was activated by two ladies on the prairies that when the federal government started to drop the ball on environmental assessment, environmental impacts within Native country, those two ladies started that movement, and that movement ran right across Canada, ended up in Shishalh. Shishalh people reacted, and I think that Idle No More is going to be reactivated this winter. If not this spring, you're going to see a huge movement created by many national chiefs.
We are now going to do the war song. We are now going to do the war song. After the war song, then we're going to march.
This government is wholesaling making changes to the fabric of Canada by not consulting with their own people on really major issues. I'm all for jobs. I'm all for a good economy. But it's got to be done right, with respect to, otherwise they can't keep eroding is a good word for it. They can't keep eroding the fabric of Canada and expect the protections to be there when it all falls down. Money is not going to help if you have no clean water to drink. Money is not going to help when the air is so poisoned that you can't breathe it without filters.
Say hi, Paradise. Wave. Wave at the camera. Wave at the camera, Paradise.
The songs that we're singing were songs composed by the Shishalh Nation, and we're here to prove a point that we're as First Nations, we're still here practicing our traditions, and we won't be pushed aside for corporations to come and take our land. So we come to hold our hand up high and say that we are still here and we're going to protect our land. The war song is to say that we are no longer going to sit back and watch destruction amongst our land, so we get band together and we sing that song to prove that we shall idle no more.
I'm very honored to be here today, and I want to share with you the struggle that we had many years now. It's been 200 years since the struggle began. I took over the struggle in 1974. I took over from my father, who was a chief, in 1952 until he died. He died of a heart attack, bleeding ulcers, and a broken heart. And I'm really happy that my grandchildren are here today to see that finally the natives are going to stand together. Finally, the community is going to gather together and take on the struggle together. That's what we need. We shared this land over 200 years ago. We shared our rivers, our mountains, we shared our forests, we shared everything we had so that other people could survive in this territory. And now many of us have turned to culture, many of us have retired, many of us have turned 60, it's true. But I want to share with you, my dad was only 53 when he died. And it was a shame that his life ended so quickly. But it is because of the oppression and the suppression that he experienced. Surviving in the residential school. I am probably the last generation to be in the residential school. And I survived, my wife survived, and we're going to continue the struggle until there is recognition and suppression is no longer.
And to me, this is from the grassroots people who are organizing these events. And it's time that we no longer sit down and accept what's going on, and we stand up and protect our rights and our title to each respective nation's territory. But not only that, it shows solidarity from every resident on the Sunshine Coast who has come out and showed support. To me, it's a law to have consultation with First Nations communities, and we need to be at the table talking, because I don't think industry, government should be allowed to trample on our rights.
Because I don't know more means that we're not going to sit back anymore. We're going to stand up for our rights. I want to welcome everybody onto the sacred land of the Shishalh people. This is unceded land, and we're going to let the government know that very strongly now, that you're unceded land.
People are getting fed up with this, eroding of our rights. That it's time that people sat down and really thought about change. Change is scary to a lot of people, but it's also a good thing, because we've got to change how things have been done.
Nuts. Just one of the useful skills you'll learn at Scouts, eventually.
Poverty shouldn't be a life sentence. With your donation, we can write a new, more positive sentence.
Welcome back to the third show, Voices of Shishalh. And we have our host, Chief Calvin Cragen. And Chief, this started out as an idea that was on a piece of paper on your table. And now we've had some very big guests. We had the Premier of the province, Vaughn Palmer of the Vancouver Sun and Voice of BC is going to be coming up this month, as well as Stephen Hume, very widely acclaimed writer for the Vancouver Sun. Justin Trudeau is popping by in December. And so people want to be in this longhouse because of the sacred nature, and they want to be able to find out what's going on. What are you thinking? Because after the Silquatine, your world changed. You could be viewed by some as the new landlord, others by freshly empowered. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that the events that are happening and the events that are coming about need to be communicated to the community, if not to the band membership. And we think communication is a big component of how we're going to engage with the public and bring away, or at least put away, the fears that they may have with the changes that could happen in terms of co-management, co-government, working relationship with the local governments. And we've been preparing for that for many, many years. And I'm happy today to have the guest that we have so we can discuss and talk about the planning and the collaboration that we're having today.
And that guest is a well-known resident of the Sunshine Coast, very well respected. He's the chair of the SCRD, and he is the representative from Half Moon Bay, Gary Knorr. Welcome to Voices of Shishalh.
Thank you for the welcome, Chief Kelvin.
Thank you, Gary. I want to start by congratulating Gary. He's been re-elected by acclamation, and we're very happy that Gary has been successful, because we see an ally with Gary and a couple other members who sit on the board, because we've been working in close relationship with them for many, many, many years.
Tell me something, Gary. You were at the opening of the Longhouse, and you saw how important that is. What are your thoughts on that move by this band to reclaim their territory and to basically expose people to the idea that there's a lot of newcomers and they're not amongst that group?
I think the number one thing that was noticed in that was, to me, it was interesting to go and find out and participate in a ceremony that's the natives were very proud of in that area, and putting a longhouse in there. I think what was missing on our part is the fact of we were invited to go, but we didn't celebrate it with the rest of our own community and make sure they're aware of it. And since then, people have quite interested in what the First Nations are doing and getting more information. And one of the things we found out already coming out of that was we have to communicate with our own people in each regional area about how we're relating with the First Nations here in Shishalh.
So, Chief, your thought is that as the band increases its power and its ability basically to grow its culture throughout the regions, you want to do that in a collaborative way, or will you do it in whichever way it has to be done to be accomplished?
Well, I think the community, if not the local governments, but the provincial government, needs to see that the Shishalh people are having a presence and are active in our territory. We've been denied access for many, many years, but now that the doors are opening, our people are going out there into the territory, and our presence has to be seen, it has to be communicated to. In similar fashion with the local SCRD, their people have to be made aware that our people need to have access to the resources. We need to have access to our lands and our territory. We need to have access to the resources up and down the inlets in regards to parks, forestry, mining, all of those things. And we're working together not only with local governments, but the provincial government we're negotiating with on a weekly basis. And we need to keep the local governments informed of our progress, because it really affects a lot of things of how we co-manage, just in the watersheds and in the drinking water that goes out to each and every citizen on the peninsula. So everything that affects us affects them. So we need to keep them close.
So you think the federal government, provincial governments look at the model of SCRD and you as chair, Gary, and your attitude and what Chief and his council are doing? Do you think there's a model for a relationship that others can learn from?
I think that's becoming obvious. We had a chance to present that relationship at UBCM, but they were so tied up this year. We're going to present it next year. One of the things that's become very obvious to me is it's all of the municipalities in the regional district here have worked with the SIB. We're expanding it to the Squamish Nation too, and probably up to Powell River area. But the people have not become aware of that yet, because a lot of the time we've met in camera to try and get things moving forward with the provincial government or the federal government. We work together on different options. And to me, I think as Chief Kelvin is saying, that basically that we got to be more open, both sides, about what we're doing now to make sure it works right.
So how have your attitudes towards First Nations changed, say, since your youth?
Me personally?
Yes.
Well, I grew up in the east end of Vancouver where there wasn't that many First Nations, but I taught for many, many years in First Nation communities, including in Whitehorse where I was involved in negotiations for land claims, that sort of thing. So I've grown. In fact, in one school I was asked to teach First Nation studies. And so basically I've had a little touch of it, but I learned a lot more since I've been here and working with SIB.
How do you think Canadians can benefit by embracing the First Nations and their world of culture and their point of view, their perspective? I mean, there's such a rich treasure of things that could be brought that are all really, truly Canadian, and Canadians could benefit. How do you think that will come to pass?
You only have to go in this longhouse to any of their ceremonies and go through the process and watch what goes on and see how people relate with each other and how they continue their governance. And the fact, working with us, it's a learning thing for us to do. And listening. I think they listen better than we do in our governance model. And I think that's been a learning thing for all of us. And working through a process, you got to take your time. You don't rush at it. And I think here on the coast, it's really noticeable that if we don't go with the First Nations and work with them, we're not going to be successful economically, because that's where the power is going to be. And that's what I feel strongly about, that we got to work with SIB, we got to work with the Squamish Nation, and if we do, the jobs will stay here on the coast, not only for First Nations, but for non-First Nations young people.
Do you agree with that, Chief?
Well, definitely do. But I believe it has to start with education. And our strategy is that our cultural department is going to take that initiative by bringing it to the high schools, bringing it to the elementary schools, because in those areas, those young people need to be made aware of who the Shishalh people are. How many years have they been here? How many years have they preserved this land? How many years have they tried to protect this land? And the way it was harvested in the past has to be brought out, for example, of how they harvested, how they decimated the land while doing that. But there's a change now. There's different thinking along with the industry, the industrial companies that are coming into our territory. And like the chairman says, you know, it's now changing of times is going to allow the community to practice a different way of harvesting, whereby the resources are going to be protected and sustained. And the monies that come from the harvesting are going to stay in the community. Whereas in the past, the government or multinationals came in, speculated, left with all the money and all the resources, and the government took the rest. We've got to start putting some of that initiative back into the community, like new roads, upgrading our hospitals, upgrading our services. We want to work with local governments to provide a better living standard amongst all the citizens of the peninsula.
So Gary, as is our wont, we leave the last word for our guest, and you are that today. You can say anything you particularly want to, or you can address what Chief has just said in his visionary outlook of how things will be.
I think what he said is very, very important. For instance, I've had numerous trips up the inlet, Salmon and Narrows Inlet with First Nations, and look at the salmon coming back. You only have to go out with their fisheries person, Sid Quinn, and see the work that he's doing and see how many fish came back this year. You go to a IPP, an independent power project, where they put a channel in, and it was just walk on water sort of thing. And so all of these things I think are really impressive to the fact that there's a chance for us working together to be successful. We already found out when we go to put a paper in before we send it to provincial government and CC the First Nation. Now we go and meet with the First Nations and then send it in together. That's the difference.
And that's a big difference. Thank you, Gary, for being on the show, the chair of the SCRD, and the representative for Half Moon Bay. Stephen Hume of the Vancouver Sun will be on this show on our next taping. After that, Vaughn Palmer, again of Vancouver Sun and Voice of BC. And in December, we have issued an invitation to favorable response to have Justin Trudeau on, and right here in the Longhouse. So I guess it has become something of a special moment for you to share with these people, because coming into the Longhouse isn't like walking into any other building anywhere, is it?
That's true. The spirituality of our Longhouse, the history of our Longhouses brings the spirit of the Shishalh people forward. It protects and promotes the Shishalh people, and that's what we're all about. And we're happy that we're going to be able to share that. And we're looking forward to many, many guests that we'll have on the show. And we're going to start going out to the community to see what else is out there in the community that we can share as a community.
Well, as always, you've had the last word, Chief, and the next thing for you to do is introduce the way we close each show with the singers and the songs. Where do the songs come from?
It comes from within. Each and every one of our people carries a song, and it's up to us to bring those songs out. And we do that by the drumming, the singing, and just having our people come out and just be happy and celebrate.
And on that note, we're going to bring forth Andy Johnson and the singers, and we're going to thank you for watching, and we will see you in 2 weeks with the Chief in the Longhouse on the Voices of Shishalh.
This song is the Shishalh welcome song. All normal chalap, thanking our Lakmeno for translating the songs that we sing today. The words in the song, Maywela Amash, is welcome friends and relatives. And then when we say All normal chalap, that means thank you all for being here.